Good morning, Jad. How are you, sir?
Morning. How are you? All well, Dennis?
Nice, nice. Jad, thank you for agreeing to do this sort of impromptu CX in the Wild ish podcast where we can go over a little bit about your adventures over the last few years. So much has happened in your world. And for the audience, just to explain, Jad is in charge of, he's part of a team at Expo City now. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened over the last couple of years, the last 5 years, actually, because it's such a transformational story. So, without giving away much more, Jad, I'd like to start contextually asking you a couple of questions about your background leading up to how you went on the adventure and the experience of Expo. So, can I just start? Can you just tell me a little bit about where you grew up and then leading into where you went to school?
My God, we need to go back that much. All right. So, so I'm Lebanese, born, and I grew up in Lebanon. Uh, Basically, I did university in Lebanon at the Lebanese American University. Graduated in 1997. Studied international affairs. I did a minor in economic development. Never thought I would be working in marketing, right? So when I went to university, international affairs sounded an interesting topic. It was new at Lebanese American University. I think maybe we were like the first generation to get that degree, and or thinking of working in foreign affairs, and that was something I looked for. And then during university, and I was doing my studies, I became actually my interest in computers and the internet started prior to that. And during university, it became much more of a bigger interest. And by the time I graduated, I went directly and worked in a startup in Lebanon that used to build websites. So we're talking mid 1990s, right? So that was before I finished university and maybe a year after that. So did that. I was one of the early generation in Lebanon that was developing websites there. And actually, it was a development house based in Lebanon that was building websites for companies in the UK. 2002, I started in Saudi Arabia working for Leo Burnett for a client called Saudi Telecom, STC. Led that business for 5 years for Leo Burnett in Saudi Arabia. It was a great experience because I that was the first time that I linked my understanding of the internet with what we can do on the internet, right? Uh, and merge it with marketing and advertising and what opportunities STC can have there. And it wasn't only for the ISP business of STC. So in those 5 years, I've done it for mobile, for uh, phone lines, for digital, for all the businesses under Saudi Telecom. And I, in a way, moved the traditional advertising business into digital because those were the same years where the business of advertising started moving online massively. And since then, I've went across multiple businesses from client side to agency side, as we like to call them in this region. But mostly, I've kept on moving from doing what I do, which is building online marketing solutions or offline marketing solutions, because now I came across or through the line doing it all around 360 degrees, because this is how I handle the business for most of my clients, and doing it on agency side. And I've done that for Leo Burnett. I've done that for Publicis. I've done that for McCann. I've done that for MRM McCann. And I've done that for Ooredoo, a telecom provider in Qatar. I've done that for STC, so working on their side. So when I wasn't agency side, I took marketing roles on the client side. I've done that for Do in Dubai, And I did a consultancy role where I was part of the launching team and the founding team of Jawi, again in Saudi Arabia. And Jawi was the first mobile operator that is app based. So you do everything on an app. You subscribe on an app, you get your SIM out of the app, you put your details on the app, and then there's no customer service except on the app. So I was part of the founding team for that. In between all that, at one time, and it was the early social media years, I started my own social media agency in Qatar and in Dubai. And then I was one of the first to successfully exit that business early on. I think I was the first to sell his stake in a social media business and get out and get a good earnout back in those days. Was the first to do media buy on Twitter. Was actually the first to launch a media campaign on Twitter and launch a product on Twitter in Dubai in this region. So I've had all those instances where I tried things when they were being just introduced to the market. And all across those years, I've learned a lot. And I think I'm, in general, an early adopter. So I like to tinker with technology. I like to experiment with it. And I'm not afraid of doing something and failing. And when Expo 2020 came around in the late 2020, and they told me, your profile is interesting for us. We would like you to come and run our marketing prior to launch and then during the event time. I was like, okay. So I've done so many things across different countries in the region. I know a lot about the region. I know, and knowing a lot about this region is different than working in Europe or the US because this region is a melting pot. People that live here aren't actually from here. The majority of us haven't been born here. And then we end up moving in and working in UAE or Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Kuwait, right? And then we accumulate experience and we start knowing the customer base here. And then we always look at it from a different lens, which is the lens of where we grew up and the experiences we've had in different countries. And in a way, some of us, or most of us, that are in this line of business, we end up doing relationship management naturally because we're always managing relationships because we are from a different culture and we tend to look at people differently. So we're always careful how we interact with other cultures. And I think this helps us figure these things out easier than others. And in marketing, that's extremely important. In customer experience, that's extremely important. And that's why for me, those marketing and customer experience world merge and become one. And I don't do one without doing the other. So I always approach my campaigns through looking at journeys and looking at people and who are they and why they behave in the specific certain ways that they do and how I should, as a brand, talk to them and build connections with them.
I think you really did contextualize how you came to your modern or your this era way of thinking. What it tells me as a listener is yes, early adopter. However, your early experiences, I think at that time in the business ecosystem, people were becoming aware of scale, how to scale things, and how to orchestrate these new technologies. And as you were talking, I was thinking about, it's an often used metaphor, but in someone who orchestrates a large set of instruments, it reminds me of you because you experiment with different genres of communications. You play the high notes and the low notes, but you also, I think, play the rests quite well. And so you have a sophistication from your international business, your evolution through this new information economy at scale, when combined with the different technologies and implementations that you've had a chance to experiment with, it that experimentation, I think, has given you insights that are highly valuable to anybody who works with you. But then you got this assignment at Expo 2020, and no description that I can provide of your prior experience, or anyone's for that matter, could prepare anyone for what Expo was. And can you just somehow summarize for an audience who doesn't have much context about Expo? I'll tell you, I try to explain it as honestly as possible, as both figuratively and literally the greatest experience on earth. That's to me what Expo was at that time. And it just sounds so preposterous to anyone who doesn't know what Expo really is. But if you start to Google Expo 2020, or you get to hear from someone like you, I hope that people really start to dial in that it really is somewhere close to how I'm describing it. But how would you describe it to the world?
Look, definitely nobody can, at least I couldn't, when I took on this job, or in the first interview I had for my role at Expo 2020. I didn't imagine the scale. I couldn't no matter how it was explained to me, whatever I had in my mind as, okay, this is what my role is going to be, this is what I'm going to be doing. I think it ended up being maybe 30-40% of what it was. The scale was massive. And like anyone who's approaching a new role, I went and researched all expos before. And you look at them and what they've done, and the amount of content they created, and the amount of people that went in, and the amount of events that they had. Expo 2020 was any expo on steroids at a scale of not 10x, 100x. From the number of countries that participated to the amount of events happening in a day, to the amount of content being created in a day, and all that, put it on one side, and then say, you know what? Take all that scale and put it during a global pandemic. So if it was already something that was massive and big and extremely difficult, now we multiply that by another 100 or maybe more because of a pandemic and everything that is unforeseen that it applies to it. Countries being shut down, airports being shut down, flight corridors being shut down, switching the model from pre-pandemic, whereby the international visitation was 70% versus 30% local, to 30% international, 70% local, while still the commitment of the country, the commitment of Expo 2020 management to deliver between 23 to 25 million visits remained. So pre-pandemic, that was the objective. During the pandemic, that remained the objective. And we still worked on it. So we had to change all our strategies, all our approach to the market, whereby the number of events we're doing is still the same, but now we need to deliver on it in a way that is safe for the visitors. And we need to switch the model whereby instead of us relying on international visitation, 70%, to local visitation becoming 70%, which means we would like people that are based in the UAE not to visit once, but to visit 7 times, 4 times, 5 times, right? So the multiplier increases for your visits. So we ran close to 70 events per day as an average. We created 70 unique pieces of content as an average per day. We took those across our website and our social channels. Website, multiple languages, social channels, multiple languages. We had all social channels. So we were from on TikTok to Twitter, X now, to any channel that is specific to China or to Russia in their own languages. So the team that was creating content had to be from all those countries because I didn't want to create content in English and then translate it to Chinese. I wanted to talk to the audience in China the way a Chinese would talk to them and make that as simple and direct to them as it should be, as a brother or a sister addressing them, not as Jad, who is Lebanese living in Dubai, talking to them in Shanghai. And the same to Russia. I mean, if you want people to become familiar with something as complex as the event that we had, with multiple topics being discussed: cultural, economical, environmental, educational, health, sports, all that was addressed at Expo 2020 Dubai. You need to make it as easy and simple as a conversation as possible. It has to be in their own language. It has to be using terms that they're familiar with, and it cannot be direct translation. So we've went that way, which is a way that will require scale and cannot be delivered unless you've had the right infrastructure in place, unless you've had, and when I talk infrastructure, I'm talking, yes, tools, I'm talking platforms, I'm talking methods of communication, camera, name it, all of it. You need to think about the smallest detail and to make sure you have the entire infrastructure well connected, well established, people trained on using everything in it prior to you pressing the go button. And then you need to have the layer, which is us people using all that from multiple cultures, speaking multiple languages, understanding multiple target audiences. And then layer on top of that a layer of safety, because everything we've done, we had to do it in a safe way because there was a global pandemic and we wanted people to feel safe. Yes, it's not we are telling them there's an event happening here, it's a safe event and we'll take care of them. We'll make sure they will not get a COVID illness while attending Expo 2020. And we didn't have that because we were extremely safe. And people should come here and then have a great experience. They should leave calling their friends. Dennis, I just came and spent a day at Expo 2020, and you know what? I need to come tomorrow. So if you're not planning to do that, you're going to miss the biggest opportunity ever this decade to experience something that will really, in one place, tell you who's UAE, what's Dubai doing, what is the world facing as future challenges, culturally, what's going on in the world, uh, education wise, what's happening in the world, health wise, what's happening in the world, all in one place.
When you talk about having the infrastructure in place, your wider team, the entire team, you not only built the communication systems, but you built the buildings, you created a city, you did all of this. And give me the time period from the time you broke ground to the time Expo Dubai 2020 closed. What was the time period of the in full development?
So Dubai was awarded Expo 2020 in 2013, and the work started 2016. So the first couple of years were strategy, were planning, and so on. And then the build happened by before 2020. Construction was over because we were supposedly launching in 2020, right? It's called Expo 2020, but we ended up launching in 2021 because of the pandemic. So it was postponed a year. From the day it was awarded to the day it happened, 9 years.
Wow. So 9 years. And then the event itself, how long did it run?
It ran for 6 months, and we're talking 6 months of 24/7 activations, events, pavilions, nearly all the countries of the world present in one place. So some countries have their own pavilions, some of them had assisted pavilions that we built for them, and all that was built by Expo. So it's a city. Today, you go online, you look at Expo City Dubai, and you see a full city that was Expo 2020 Dubai, right? We've built all that as an organization. Now we continuously keep on building through because, yes, the event is over, but the event finished and gave birth to a city where you can live, work, play, entertain, educate. So this city right now is being established. We've launched our residential project earlier this year. We're building 10 towers inside the city that are residential. We're building a project called Expo Valley, which is close to 1,000 villas that are in proximity to Expo City, connected via a pedestrian natural bridge, whereby people can walk from Expo Valley to the city. The entire concept of Expo City now is a social district. So, as we talk of places that are business districts, this is a social district. So, this is a place where in 15 minutes walking, you can go from one place to another within the city. You don't drive a car within the city. You walk or you go on a scooter or on a bicycle. So it's really sustainable from the approach. By the way, sustainability was a key pillar in Expo 2020 Dubai, and it remained and continued to the Expo City. So Egan, which is our sustainability pavilion during Expo 2020, remains today up and running as a sustainability museum, if you want. So it's not pavilion anymore. Today, people still visit Terra, schools, universities, and tourists, and come and experience our vision of how you, what we've done as humans across the planet in the last decade vis-a-vis planet Earth, and how we can turn that into a sustainable way of living for the future. The same happens with our mobility pavilion, Aleph, and the story continues. So, event finished, city is born. That same story that we gave birth to during the event continues, but now you can live here. You can have an office here. You can get your company licensed and based here, and you can enjoy cultural shows, F&B options, and running across the city in a track that is all around it. We experienced that.
To your point, you had the world's leading sustainability, innovation, cultural, performance, government, business thinking leaders from all over the world came together for 6 months and defined for the entire world what the future could look like. And that was a celebration. And certainly the expo events are designed to do that. To your point, you did this at a new scale that had never been done before. And you didn't touch on it and we don't need to dive into it, but the experiences expo, when I was there, they were state of the art. They were thought through to every customer, citizen, human experience level possible, from, to your point, the languages, but also the sensory perception, the education, the intellectual, even the emotional and the familial engagements that happened. For instance, one of the things I found very interesting about Expo in as a customer experience professional is that it wasn't just about the journey of one. A mother and a daughter could go to an experience at Expo,
Yeah.
and leave that experience having a shared experience that was transformative for their future journeys. So you redefined all these experiences, and there people can do some research, but what's really great, I think, is what you've done since then. Since then, you have now taken this modern city, this pinnacle of evolution of experience, and you've turned it into a real city. And to your point, one of the things you were just calling attention to, it I found so amazing about the planning of the city, is even the ground had been reconstructed so that when you walk on the sidewalks, if you will, they're not hard or difficult. They have this little spring or bounce in them from recycled, reclaimed materials that were, you turn the byproducts of the waste, if you will, of building a city into a human benefit that creates a more walkable or joggable city. So you thought through all of this. Jad, what has happened since the end of the culmination of Expo 2020 Dubai? You've now set out on an equally big mission. And you mentioned some of the infrastructure, the business opportunities, but it's so much more than that. You've created what I think sounds to me like a cultural center of the world that, again, you're taking some risks and building some new models for people and humans. Walk us through. So Dubai 2020, Expo 2020 Dubai, you finally, in your amazing finale, finished that event, but then you went straight back to work. And what was the vision right after
So the
the
plan
celebration?
from day one, when Dubai put the plans for Expo 2020, was that when the event will finish, a city will come out of it, right? And all through those years, that planning was moving forward, but it's never closed as a plan. We never reached a point where we said, you know what, this is it. We closed the planning. This is the book. This is what we're going to implement. A decade is a long period of time where new technologies are being introduced. People are demonstrating new ways of life, new interests, right? So our planning kept on changing continuously, our future planning, and getting updated so that when we end up closing Expo 2020 and launching Expo City, we'll have a new product for the day and time that we're in. And this is what happened. So Expo 2020 finishes. I think in June last year, we announced Expo City Dubai. So a couple of months after Expo 2020 ended, Feb this year, we've launched our residential projects and we've launched our commercial. So basically, the event and the city that hosted that event transformed to become a place where people can come and live and buy property to live in it, whether it is apartments. And we're not talking about apartments that are on the periphery of the city. The apartments are being built in towers that are in the middle of the city. We created a new district. We called it Expo Central. And Expo Central features 10 residential towers across three specific positions or plots. One is called Mangrove, one is called Cedar, and one is called Sky. They happen to be on those avenues, right? So we had those avenues named before during Expo 2020, and they all overlook specific landmarks in the city. So when you live in one of those apartments, you'll basically be in the heart. You go on your balcony, you will see Al Wasl, the big dome, the big 360-degree projection dome that is in the heart of the city and is the heart of the city. You will overlook Jubilee Park, a great park where concerts and events used to happen and will continue to happen. You will overlook Surreal Water Feature, which is an amazing, beautiful waterfall where you go and you sit in the middle and you see the water flowing down with colors and the music playing against it. And we use it for lots of events. You will go down from your apartment and you will walk into a restaurant or a bakery. So all that now becomes central. That's why we called it Expo Central. And this place is always buzzing. So offices are moving into the city, companies are moving in. They'll take specific pavilions that we've created before and were called assisted pavilions. Now this is all commercial space for offices. And then you have Expo Valley that's being built behind in close proximity to Expo City and connected to it. And that will be all villas. And all those projects will start to be delivered in Jan 2026. So now we started the construction. First phases of the projects have all been sold, so the demand is high. And as we're moving forward with the delivery of all that, the city from now till mid-December is going through a different story. So COP28 is being hosted at Expo City. And right now we're in preparation for COP28. So we're the host city for it. And COP28 will take place in the last week of November, will extend to the mid of December, and that's happening here in this city. And during this period of time, the city will live through another mega event that is the COP28 event.
Wow. God, how many residents will live in Expo City?
So, what I spoke about is basically maybe 20% of what will be built across the time, because the land that Expo City has is much bigger than this.
Okay.
So ultimately, what is the number we will get to? We still don't
Yeah.
have it. We're going through a master development phase right now where the entire planning is happening. But for the towers that I have named and the number of villas that we have, those are close to 2,000 units that right now are part of the initial plan,
And
between villas and apartments, 1 bedroom to 3 bedroom apartments, and villas from 3 bedroom to 5 bedroom villas.
and if I'm a business that I'm looking at, let's say I'm a forward-thinking brand and I want to be part of the transformation of the world and the evolution of experiences. And I say this because you have this unique city where it will truly be the new melting pot or cultural hub of the world. All of these new residents and the disposition that your government has taken towards bringing so many cultures and people together. I think it's important to note, you didn't mention this, but one of the things I found really fascinating and I think enlightening or inspiring about Expo was there were countries that maybe they had different political positions, but they set aside those differences to come together at Expo in a united world. And I felt like, wow, we need more of that, because there was this sense of peace and safety, as you said, but this unity in humanity that I thought was so wonderful. And so if I'm a brand and I want to be part of this new world opportunity or thinking, what how many residents plus traffic, what is the business opportunity? Let's say I'm a fast food chain or
I will give it to you differently. So think of this as number one, Expo City Dubai is a free zone, right? So this is one of the new free zones in Dubai and in UAE. So this, as an authority, we give you business licenses to come up and set up your operation in UAE, in Expo City. You can get your office not only to cater for Expo City, but to cater for Expo City, for Dubai, for UAE, and for the region, because we easily connect you to all the countries around. We are, I think, 5 or 10 minutes away from an airport, 10 minutes away from Jabal Ali Free Zone, which is biggest industrial free zone in the region, and seaport. We're 20 minutes away from Dubai International Airport. So it isn't like you're here, you're catering only for Expo City. No, the opportunity is for new businesses, businesses that are into sustainability, into innovation, to become part of this community that is today Expo City Dubai in Dubai, so that they cater for Dubai, for UAE, for Saudi Arabia, for Kuwait, for Qatar, for India, for Europe. uh, G20 just announced a huge project that connecting India via UAE to Europe, right? So this is a new economic corridor. It passes through UAE, through Dubai. This is what this city gives you. It gives you the most advanced infrastructure because it's new. It's built now. The fastest 5G connectivity you can get, the most sustainable environment. This city has no cars driving on the roads. You reach the city circumference, you go underground. The entire underground is a parking. You leave your car, you go up, you walk, you take a buggy, you take a bicycle. You can live, work, and get entertained in the same place, walking. And then you take a short Uber ride. You're on a plane going to your meeting in Saudi Arabia or in Europe or in India, right? You take a short Uber ride, you're in Abu Dhabi, dealing with Abu Dhabi, or in Ras Al Khaimah. The connectivity and the location of the city is important. And we have a metro that drops people from the airport directly to the city. So the station is there. It isn't like you're far away. It isn't like you're on the outskirts. It isn't like you think of being in Expo City only to cater for Expo City. No, the opportunity is bigger. The location is ideal. The infrastructure is here to serve you for the coming decades. So any business thinking of moving now to the region, this is the ideal place.
Wow. And I will say in terms of, your planning for the city, one of the things I noticed and I investigated while I was there is the city plan was done so thoroughly, the strategy and the digital way that you approached the infrastructure development. I found it fascinating that the customer or the human experience was thought through all the way to the level of the pathways and the walkways between the buildings. It was designed to capture the breeze and the wind patterns of nature to work in harmony with the architectural elements, such that thinking about the human being walking through the seasons, through the city, the weather was considered. And that's something that I think speaks to the vision and the strategy of the experiences that a person will have as a business or as a consumer or as just someone who values the growth of humankind, intellectually, I think, ethically, spiritually. I think you have all of these things that just are so inspiring and rare. I mean, what a wonderful time for you to be part of a team that is at this place in the world. What's that like? Like, Jad,
It's
just you're in,
it's
yeah,
extremely exciting. Every day is not like the other, Dennis. So basically, you wake up in the morning thinking you have your day planned ahead of you, but it's always surprising because this place is on daily basis challenging you. So if you're someone who lives for a challenge on daily basis, you're basically in the right place here. And I don't know. I think I'm by nature addicted to challenges. So it's never been easy, right? And you put me in a place that is always becoming more difficult and always surprising you. I thrive, and I think everyone who's here is the same. We're all approaching this in the same manner, and the size of the project and the ambition and what it is in how it serves humanity is extremely important. It gives us purpose and drive.
yeah. I've been so impressed with your, you know, people use the term fail forward and adaptability and agility, but the courage that your team has displayed year over year, it's become a it's not just a feat, it's become a model for how leaders around the world can embrace change and have a purpose to drive towards something greater than any of us while keeping the human at the center of the decisions and the strategy. It's just an unparalleled story. I cannot believe, even me from the outside, just having a chance to talk to you, it's been one of the most inspiring parts of my career. Thank you for letting me even be able to tell some of your story. What's happening next? Where do you go from here? What can we share with the world that gives them the next step in the footsteps of Expo City that they can join you on the journey?
All right. So October, we're opening again Al Wasl, which is the heart of Expo City. It goes into hibernation during summer for maintenance and so on, and we open it up with a great show. And then come November, we're welcoming the world again into the city with COP28. The world leaders will again come to the city and spend here 2 weeks. discussing most important sustainable and climate topics that they have. And after that, it's business as usual again, us welcoming companies that are moving into the city and moving forward with our residential projects and the build of the new phases of the city. In parallel, you have cultural events, educational conferences, and urban conferences happening across 2024. 2024 is going to have an extremely exciting calendar. We have a 3-day musical concert by the name of Untold happening for the first time in the region, happening at Expo City, taking over all over the city. And then we continue events, building forward, welcoming more companies, and hopefully making this place into the best example of what Dubai can offer to the world.
Beautiful. And I think it's important to note this doesn't extend just only to uh physical experiences. You're sponsoring an artificial intelligence film festival. Is that
Not
right?
sponsoring, but basically, we have launched one a week
Okay.
ago. So we launched an artificial intelligence film festival. One of our key elements as a city is future technologies, and we have a department that's dedicated for future technology. And they do lots of work in AI and how to integrate AI into our day to day operations internally. And then they deliver those services as well to external customers. And we've launched an AI film festival last week. Right now, it's open for submissions, and we've been receiving lots of submissions. I'm not announcing any numbers today, but it has been phenomenal in a week. Actually, in the first 24 hours, we were surprised by the amount of submissions we had. And it's open for submissions until December. Soon, we're going to be announcing the jury and the judges, and we have a huge and amazing lineup and an award ceremony for the winners of the AI Film Festival. That's the first to happen in this region. I don't know, it might be the first happening globally on that level.
Fantastic. Always setting the bar high. Jad, thank you so much for
We try.
speaking with me today. It's a pleasure. And where can what's the best way for people to research all of the amazing things happening at Expo City?
Our website, expositydubai.com, or our social media channels, and we're across all of them. You'll find us on TikTok, on X, on Facebook, name it. If it's a platform that you're on it, we're definitely on it.
Awesome. All right, Jad, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Dennis. Have a great day.